In 2023, a guy with a master's in communications applied for a content writing job paying 42 grand. Rejection said he was overqualified. Same week, a 22-year-old with a YouTube channel and 4,000 subs got the job. That's not bad luck. That's not a fluke. That's a pattern. And once you see it, you literally cannot unsee it. Stick with me. It gets worse. A mechanical engineer graduated $87,000 in debt, couldn't find a single firm hiring, ended up doing telecom sales. A pre-med kid finished 4 years of biology, missed med school, spent 2 years pushing paper at an insurance company. Meanwhile, some dropout outside Columbus runs a Shopify store doing 380 grand a year. Different outcomes, same broken machine underneath. So here's the question I want you sitting with for the next 20 minutes. What if the degree was never the asset you were told it was? What if an entire generation just paid $200,000 to find out the hard way? We're gonna break down how this machine got built, why it worked for 40 years, why it suddenly stopped, and what actually matters now that it's dead. Let me give you the metaphor for this whole video because it's the cleanest way to see it. Picture the education to employment pipeline as a conveyor belt. You step on at 18. The belt carries you forward. High school, then university, then you pop out the other end at 22. And the economy is supposed to be standing there with a salary, a job, a path upward. That's how the machine got sold. Step on, get processed, get deposited into a comfy middle-class life. And for a long time, the belt actually worked. Not perfectly, not for everyone, but well enough that it became the default answer. Parents believed it. Guidance counselors believed it. Banks lent money against it. Society literally organized itself around this one conveyor belt. But here's what nobody stops to ask. Who actually built the conveyor belt? What's it really designed to do? And what happens when the destination it points at no longer exists? Because that's exactly where we are right now. And it takes a few layers to really get why. So let's peel them back one at a time. Because the truth is messier than the hot takes. First thing you gotta understand, the conveyor belt did work. This matters. I'm not here saying college was always a scam. That's the lazy take, and it's flat out wrong. It ignores what the data actually shows across different decades. Back in the 50s, 60s, into the 80s, a university degree was genuinely rare, and rare is the whole secret here. In the United States in 1960, roughly 8% of adults had a 4-year degree. 8%. That number matters because scarcity is what creates value. When 8% of the workforce holds a credential and 100% of employers want literate, trainable workers, the math is obvious. That degree signaled something real. It said you survived the filter, you finished hard things. It signaled you could follow instructions for 4 years, hit deadlines, operate inside institutions. Employers paid a premium for that signal. Through the 70s and 80s, the wage gap between degree holders and everyone else was enormous. We're talking 40 to 50% higher lifetime earnings on average. That's real money. That's a genuine return on investment. The belt paid out. So when your parents or grandparents told you to go to college, they weren't lying. They were giving accurate advice for the world they actually lived in. The mistake is assuming their world is the same world you're walking into. It is not even close. The belt they rode and the belt you're standing on look identical, but the destination quietly got bulldozed. Here's where the belt gets strange. At some point, the machine got popular. Wildly popular. The government decided to make college more accessible, which sounds great, and in some ways was great. But accessible means subsidized, and subsidized means the price signal breaks. When you can borrow basically unlimited money for any school, prices stop being anchored to anything real at all. When students can borrow whatever it takes, universities stop competing on price or outcomes. They compete on prestige and marketing instead. And they're really good at marketing. Between 1980 and 2024, the cost of a 4-year US education jumped roughly 1,300%. Adjusted for inflation, tuition grew 8 times faster than wages. Not 8%. 8 times. Let that sink in. Think about that on the belt. The machine got way more expensive, but the belt keeps moving the same speed and dropping people in roughly the same place. A business degree in 1985 cost maybe $8,000 in tuition. You came out making 30 grand, paid it off in a few years, math worked clean. Step on cheap, step off solvent. Everybody wins. That same business degree in 2024 runs you somewhere between $60,000 and $120,000 in tuition alone, more with room and board. You come out making 45 grand to start if you're lucky. Now the math doesn't work. Not even close. Same belt, same processing, but the price shot up 400% and the output barely budged. The return on investment just collapsed. And here's the uncomfortable part. The institutions running the belt have zero incentive to tell you this. A university doesn't get paid based on your post-grad salary. It gets paid when you enroll. That's the only transaction that matters to them. After that, you're a number in a glossy pamphlet. The Career Services Center isn't a guarantee, it's a photo opportunity. Let me be precise. I'm not attacking professors or admins as people. Most are doing their jobs. The problem is the incentive structure they sit inside. The incentives are tuition revenue, research grants, donor relationships, and US news rankings. None of those four things are tied to whether you land a good job in your field 5 years out. That's the rot right there. So the machine kept getting pricier, outcomes stayed flat or got worse, and the folks selling tickets had every reason to keep selling and none to stop. That's not a conspiracy. That's just how misaligned incentives work. You don't need anyone to be evil. You just need the arrows all pointed the wrong direction, everyone optimizing their own slice while the whole thing quietly fails you. Now it gets genuinely dark. Even if the cost had stayed flat, there's a second problem that would have broken this belt anyway. It's called credential inflation. Watch how it works. In 1970, you needed a high school diploma for a decent office job. By 1990, you needed a bachelor's for that exact same job. Same desk, same tasks, higher entry fee. By 2015, some of those same jobs listed a master's as preferred. The job never changed. The day-to-day tasks stayed the same, or got simpler, thanks to technology. But the credential requirement ratcheted up because more people had credentials and employers needed some way to filter the flood. The bar rises not because the work got harder, but because everyone's holding the same paper. People misdiagnose this hard. They think their degree just isn't good enough, so they need more education. They go grab a master's. Then the floor moves again. Then they think maybe a different specialization. And the machine is thrilled to sell them that next ticket. What's actually happening is a positional arms race where everyone sprints just to stand in the same spot. It's like everyone in a stadium standing up to see better. When everyone stands, nobody sees better. You just collectively made everyone's legs tired. By 2020, roughly 40% of Americans over 25 held a 4-year degree. Compare that to 8% in 1960. When 40% of the workforce has the credential, it stops being a meaningful filter at all. When something becomes the baseline, the floor, the thing you need just to get considered, it stops being an advantage. It becomes the mere absence of a disadvantage. And you're still paying $200,000 for it. Think about how brutal that is. You're not buying a leg up anymore. You're buying permission to not be instantly thrown in the trash pile. Let me make it concrete. Picture two guys, Marcus and Tyler, both 23, same city, same brains, same work ethic. Marcus goes to a mid-tier state school, 4 years, studies marketing, walks out with $68,000 in loans, lands a job at a mid-sized agency making $44,000. After taxes, rent, car insurance, groceries, minimum payments, he's got maybe $240 left a month. Marcus isn't building anything. He's treading water, paying interest on a decision he made at 17. Tyler takes a different path. Same 4 years, but he does freelance graphic design, takes online courses costing maybe $2,000 total, builds a portfolio, lands a few agency clients himself. By year 3, he's at $55,000 with zero debt. He's been investing for 2 years already. By year 4, Tyler's at $68,000. At age 27, Marcus and Tyler make roughly the same money. But Marcus still owes $49,000 in debt, and Tyler's got a growing investment account. The belt dropped them in the exact same place. Marcus just paid $68,000 for the ride. Tyler walked. Same destination. Wildly different bank accounts. That gap only widens from here. Now let me be fair, because the obvious objection is, what about fields where you genuinely need the credential? Real objection. Medicine, law, engineering, architecture. Fields where the degree isn't optional, where it's legally required, or the training is actually deep and specific. I'm not talking about those. Those are the narrow exceptions people constantly use to defend the entire crumbling system. It's like pointing at the one working escalator in a busted building and saying the whole building's fine. The vast majority of degree programs aren't medicine or law. They're communications, business, sociology, criminal justice, psychology, general management. And for those, the empirical return on investment has been sliding steadily for 2 straight decades. The exceptions are real. They're just not the rule. Good moment to pause on psychology, because it's at least as important as the economics. There's a bias called the sunk cost fallacy, and education systems exploit it perfectly without even trying. Here's how it works. The more you invest in something, the harder it gets psychologically to admit it was wrong. Not because the bet was good, because your brain protects its past choices. So you graduate 60,000 in debt with a degree that's not opening doors. Instead of questioning the choice, you rationalize. You need more experience. You need to network better. You should probably go back for a master's. Because the alternative, admitting the system handed you a bad deal at 17, is psychologically unbearable. And that's exactly what the machine quietly relies on. The belt keeps running because the people who wrote it can't afford to admit it failed them. Not maliciously, just structurally. Quick pause. If this channel is explaining stuff you haven't seen laid out clearly before, hit subscribe. I put out these breakdowns regularly, and there's more coming you won't want to miss. Okay, back to it, because the next level is the real one. Let me take this to the third level, because most people stop early and miss the most important part. The conventional take is college costs too much, wages lag, loans are predatory, the system's unfair to young people. All true, but it's surface level. It still assumes the belt is the right machine. It just wants the machine cheaper, fairer, better regulated. Wrong question entirely. Here's the deeper question. Was the conveyor belt ever actually designed to make you wealthy? Look at the incentives clearly. And the answer is no. The belt was built to produce compliant, credentialed workers for big institutional employers. That was the deal. Step 1. Get processed into a reliable employee. Work one company 35 years. Collect a pension. That was the whole social contract. But the pension is gone. The 35-year career at one company is gone. Employer loyalty is gone. The stable institutional job track in most industries is either gone or vanishing fast. Yet the belt is still running. Still pumping out compliant workers optimized for a world that no longer exists. You're being perfectly trained for a destination that got demolished decades ago. Think about what 4 years of institutional education actually trains. Show up on time. Follow a curriculum someone else designed. Perform on demand for external validation. Optimize for grades over outcomes. Defer to authority. Exist inside a structure that tells you what to do next. Excellent skills if you want to be an employee in a big bureaucracy. Almost perfectly wrong for building wealth independently. I'm not saying education is bad. I'm saying the specific form the belt delivers is optimized for a shrinking economy and deeply misaligned with the growing one. The growing economy rewards demonstrated competence over declared credentials, portfolio over diploma, the network you built over the network you paid for, specific high-leverage skills over broad general knowledge. The rules flipped, and most people never got the memo. And Gen Z is the first generation force-fed the old machine in big enough numbers, at high enough prices, into a job market that's drifted far enough away that the mismatch is impossible to ignore. Millennials got a warning shot. 2008 hit right as they graduated. Market collapsed. They moved back home. The debt got visible. But then the economy sort of recovered, and the story reset. Gen Z is dealing with something structurally different. This isn't a recession that eventually ends. It's a permanent restructuring of what work even is, what credentials mean, and who gets to build wealth. Let me make it visceral with numbers, because abstraction doesn't hit the same. Meet Daniel. I call his situation the invisible tax, and once you see it, you'll feel it. Daniel graduates in 2024. Communications degree, decent state school. Total debt, $74,000 at 6.5% interest. Starting salary at the marketing agency, 46 grand. After federal and state taxes, he takes home around $33,000 a year, roughly $2,750 a month. His minimum loan payment on the standard 10-year plan is about $840 a month. Already the walls are closing in fast. Rent in any mid-sized city where marketing jobs exist runs $1,200 to $1,500, say $1,300. That's $2,140 gone before he buys a single meal or fills the gas tank. He's got about $610 a month for everything else. Groceries, transport, phone, clothes, anything unexpected. Nothing to savings, nothing to investments. He's just consuming his paycheck and paying interest month after month. Now the invisible tax. The 6.5% interest on $74,000 is $4,810 in the first year alone. Daniel pays roughly $4,800 just to hold the debt before he touches a dollar of principal. That money goes straight to the loan servicer for the privilege of attending a university that already spent it before Daniel ever showed up on campus. Pure extraction. Over a standard 10-year repayment, Daniel pays about $101,000 total to clear a $74,000 debt. That's $27,000 in pure interest on top of what he borrowed. And that $27,000 invested modestly at 7% over 20 years would have grown to roughly $104,000. So Daniel doesn't just owe 74 grand. He owes the opportunity cost of every dollar that debt captures for a decade. And remember, that's the median scenario, not the disaster. The perfectly ordinary, everything goes fine version. Now let me hit you with the reversal, because this is where I flip the frame one more time. You think the degree is the problem. It's not. The degree is just the most expensive, most visible example of a much broader pattern running through almost everyone's financial life. The real problem is that most people were never taught to think about return on investment as it applies to their own time and capital. People buy degrees they can't afford because nobody asked them to model the returns. They take jobs that kept their upside because nobody showed them how leverage works. They park money in low-yield accounts because compound interest was never made real for them. They stay in cities where cost of living destroys their wealth building because moving feels scary and the numbers feel abstract. None of these people are stupid. They're just running on default settings inside a machine built to keep them on the belt. And here's the kicker. The education system doesn't teach finance. That's not an accident, and it's not a conspiracy either. It's just a reflection of what the people who built the system needed from it. They needed workers who'd show up. Understanding capital allocation was not on the list. So you've got an entire generation entering adulthood, facing the most expensive credential market in history, the most disrupted job market in decades, and carrying less practical financial literacy than any generation before it. Brutal combination. And the jobs those workers were promised? Being automated, consolidated, offshored, or restructured into gig arrangements with none of the old stability. Okay, comedic cutaway. I need it before this gets too grim. Imagine a vending machine that used to give you a sandwich for $1. Press B4, get a sandwich. Reliable. Fine. The deal made sense. Over 30 years the sandwich price creeps up. $1, $3.11, $42. But the vending machine people keep insisting it's an investment. This sandwich has never been more valuable. You need this sandwich to be taken seriously. So you press B4, pay $42 and get a napkin. Not a bad sandwich. A napkin. The machine asks if you networked your napkin properly. Maybe you need a second napkin. Have you considered a master's napkin? That's the conveyor belt in 2026. Okay, enough complaining. The point of diagnosing the broken machine is to stop blindly feeding it coins and start understanding what machines actually pay out. The 2026 economy rewards three things harder than credentials. Here's the three-level framework for how value really flows now. Level 1 is proof of work, not credentials, not potential, not years of experience. Proof of work. Over the last decade, accelerated by the internet and remote work, the cost of demonstrating competence dropped to nearly zero. A developer drops code on GitHub. A designer posts a portfolio. A writer publishes. A marketer shows real campaign results. A salesperson documents outcomes. The gap between knowing and proving closed. So why would a company pay for a degree as proof of skill when they can just look at what you've actually built? Amazon dropped the degree requirement for most corporate roles in 2021. IBM did similar. Dozens of big companies now hire on demonstrated skill and certs over diplomas. That's not generosity. That's employers optimizing. Because the degree filter stopped reliably selecting for what they need. Practical implication is obvious. Build the proof before anything else. Build it publicly. Build it specific. Make it impossible to ignore. A portfolio of 10 real projects plus a marketable skill outweighs a diploma from a mid-tier school. Not philosophically, measurably, in hiring odds and salary leverage. Level 2 is specific leverage. Leverage separates people who earn linearly from people who earn non-linearly. A job, even a great one, is linear. You trade hours for money. The ceiling is hours in a day times your rate. Leverage is when output stops being capped by your time. Write software once, sell it 1,000 times. Build a content asset that pulls attention passively. The internet handed individuals leverage that used to require a whole corporation, a factory, a sales force. Most people don't capture this because leverage isn't comfortable. It means building things that don't pay off immediately. Tolerating stretches where work and pay don't line up. The belt trained people for instant proportional reward. Do homework, get grade, work hours, get paycheck. Leverage breaks that loop. But that discomfort is exactly why the opportunity is wide open. More under 25s are building independent income now than ever. Level 3 is asymmetric positioning, the least intuitive and maybe most valuable. It means putting yourself where the downside is capped, but the upside is huge and open-ended. The belt is symmetric, fixed money and timing. Predictable, mediocre range out. Asymmetric looks like 3 months building something cheap, with massive reach or geographic arbitrage, living cheap while earning in a high-wage market, and pocketing the spread. The belt was built for a different era. It's still running, still selling tickets, still whispering the destination's right around the corner. Some folks will be fine. Deep institutional fields still pay out. But for the broad majority, it points at nothing worth riding toward. The future belongs to people who build proof, grab leverage, and position asymmetrically. The machine changed. Update your instructions. Subscribe 1 video a week, no filler.